We are in the book of Proverbs. We are in chapter 1. We're beginning in verse 20. We are in this beginning section which takes us through chapter 9 of this discourse. It is Solomon speaking to a son, and of course that was to prepare him for life in general, not necessarily to be king, but for life in general. And of course it is coming to us as well, because these are universal truths. Wisdom is extremely ancient. Matter of fact, wisdom will talk about existing. This won't be for another number of chapters. We'll talk about chapter 8, as a matter of fact, of how ancient it is that wisdom was there at creation and witnessed these things. And of course, we're at verse 20, and here we have wisdom personified as a woman who is crying out to anyone who will hear. She raises her voice in the marketplaces. She's at the gates of the city to be heard. She is always present, always calling, until there comes a point when she's not going to be found anymore. All right, and we do find that later on in this chapter. But we begin in verse 20. And this continues to be this discourse with Solomon. And verse 20, wisdom calls aloud outside. She raises her voice in the open square. She cries out in the chief concourses. At the openings of the gates in the city, she speaks her words. She's everywhere. She calls out. She calls out to everyone. And she's not hidden yet. She's not hidden. And it's always for every generation, for every year. She is doing this sort of thing, calling out. Okay? And so this is public. This is for everyone to listen to her words. And here are her words. Verse 22. Now, I just want to make mention concerning that in the book of Proverbs, there are patterns. And this is a pattern that, in fact, will be repeated in chapter 8. And we'll just read a little bit of that. So, all right, so verse 22, how long, you simple ones, will you love simplicity? For scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. All right, so here is this question. How long? How long are you going to be doing this? When will you ever learn? Is just not learning what you want to do for the rest of your life? Okay, is there no end to any of this? To the foolishness, to being a scorner, to being simple? Is there, and as we spoke of, I guess it was 2 weeks ago, concerning the one who is simple. The one who's simple is someone who's easily misled, not someone who's necessarily wicked, but they're naive and they don't quite understand everything they need to know to keep them out of danger. They're not looking for danger, they're not looking for trouble, but I can certainly look for them. All right, and they can be taken unawares, that's for sure. And someone who is a scoffer and someone who is a fool. These are actually, a scoffer is kind of worse than a fool. But scorner or the scoffer delights in their scorning. The fool hates knowledge. And let's look at chapter 8 real quick. Chapter 8, verse 1. This is similar pattern, returning back to this idea of wisdom personified. Does not wisdom cry out, and understanding lift up her voice? She takes her stand on the top of the high hill, beside the way where the paths meet. So it's like at intersections. She cries out by the gates of the entry, at the entry of the city, at the entrance of the doors. To you, O men, I call, and my voice is to the sons of men. O you simple ones, understand prudence, and you fools, be of an understanding heart. Then continues on. Listen, for I will speak of excellent things. And it continues on from there. Now, coming back to chapter 1, here, wisdom is calling out and also giving this universal truth, because it's going to be universal truths. This is things that have been tested, tried, proven billions of times for billions of people before any of us ever existed. All of this, you can either listen to wisdom, she is calling. You can listen to her. Of course, your response is going to make a difference in your life. Your response. You can listen to her, and your future will be determined because of that. You can listen to her. And she's going to describe in chapter 2 of those who do listen to her. But if you refuse, she's going to describe here in chapter 1 what happens to you if you refuse. And this has been repeated through time, generation after generation, with billions of people. And we can learn by way of wisdom. We can learn from wisdom directly, and that would be from the wisdom of God. The Proverbs would be the entrance way into that. We can learn that way. We can learn also from the examples of others, whether those are examples have been recorded for us or examples that we have witnessed in our own life, or we can learn the hard way. And in learning the hard way, you end up like the prodigal son there feeding swine, and then suddenly discovering, well, this is not where I wanted to be. And then that is the painful way. And then you decide what you're going to do from that point on. You can continue feeding swine and be there in the mud, or you can improve things. Now, wisdom is being given so that you can improve from where you are right now. You may not be where the swine are right now. You may not be rock bottom. But if you are, you can take from it. As the introduction of this book says, the wise man can increase in understanding. And also you can have the young man grows in knowledge and discretion. The wise man will hear and increase learning, and a man of understanding will attain wise counsel. Wherever you are, you can grow from it. Whether you have made the major mistakes yet, or you've already made them, you can grow from it. You can do it. Now, we discussed that of the fools hate knowledge. Well, that goes right back to verse 7. But fools despise wisdom and instruction. And the fools that despise this, I should say, the people today who despise the book of Proverbs, who despise the Bible, are proving God right this very second. And they are proving that the words of Proverbs are true. They're proving it. This very second, they're proving it. And here is this wisdom graciously and generously offering advice and counsel. How can you live your life? How should you be living your life? Surely, verse 23, so in chapter 1, verse 23, turn at my rebuke and notice the generosity. Surely I will pour out my spirit on you. I will make my words known to you. All right? Here is this readiness, and it's immediate. You turn at my rebuke. You turn at my reproof. You do this, and here will be the response. The response is, I will pour out my Spirit on you, and I will make my words known to you. That's all you have to do. And your life can be changed from that moment. That can be a turning point. And here is this immediate response, this immediate generosity that is given. Now, we come to verse 24. Verse 24 goes to that of refusing and wisdom's reaction to it. And the reaction to it is, we'll look at it we'll look at it as we see it. Verse 24, because I have called and you refused. I have stretched out my hand and no one regarded. Because you disdained all my counsel and would have none of my rebuke. Because you have done that, you have been hard-headed, you have been stubborn, you have refused, you have disdained everything that is wise, everything that is good. Because you have done that, your future is set. There's going to be a result. There's going to be a consequence. God is not mocked. Whatever a man sows, that's what he's going to reap. Okay? That's what he's going to reap. You can't sow foolishness and sow depravity and sow every kind of wickedness and think that everything is going to be okay. That there'll be no consequence. There will be a consequence. There is a consequence for ignoring and disdaining this call. There's a consequence for it. All right? And wisdom is the one that is going to give you, use this, it's common in the Bible, and it is useful, give you the light to see. If you don't have wisdom, you won't have this light. All right? For a bear doesn't know what a bear trap is. Has no idea. I don't think a bear trap really has to be hidden. Just there's food, that's all the bear knows. And next thing, the jaws of that trap come down on it and it's trapped. Okay. I think it's the same for most animals, that they don't really recognize that something very dangerous is right in front of them. All they see is the bait. That's all they see. But if you're walking through the woods and all of a sudden you see in front of you the jaws of an open bear trap and something in the middle, even if it's your favorite food, someone has placed a donut right in the middle of that thing. Okay? Even if it's your favorite food, what are you going to do? Or you're not that dumb to say, okay, we'll see if this works or not. Okay? You're not that dumb. You walk around it, and it's foolishness for anyone to think you're going to be taken by it. All right? But when it comes to Satan, there are numerous traps he has put out for all of us. Numerous ones in temptations. And these are temptations that can be very effective. And if they weren't effective, no one would be caught in it. And there'd be no need for wisdom to call out to us, and no need for the book of Proverbs. We wouldn't need it. It's like a number of years ago, selling puzzles. And it was these little mind bender things, these puzzles. And people would come around and you'd see them trying to do something. And I would tell them, I said, if that worked the way you thought it worked, it wouldn't be a puzzle. And they said, yeah, you're right. If temptation were not effective, then it wouldn't be a temptation. Obviously, it's going to be a pull, a draw. Obviously it will be. Otherwise, it's not a temptation at all. We need to understand how effective they can and destructive they can be. We need to understand both of those, that how could I have been so foolish as to have fallen for that? Because it's common. It's common. And how is it that such a thing, falling into it, can have such a consequence? Because that's what occurs. That's precisely what happens. Now, here is wisdom day by day calling in the public places, listen to me. Listen to me. I will give you wisdom to where you can see the traps and avoid them. You could see something that everyone would recognize, yeah, that's a draw. That has a draw to it. That has something that's going to entice. And we've already had one enticement, that beginning in verse 8, that enticement by a mob, by a group of join us, we're going to profit. Join us, it's going to be theft and it's going to be murder. But we're going to be powerful and no one's going to be able to stop us, and we're going to be incredibly wealthy people. All right, that's the first enticement that he brings in. Now, everyone would know that there are things out there that are they appeal to the eye, they appeal to the imagination. You think that you're going to get one thing, and what happens is you get something else completely. It didn't exactly fulfill your imagination. You thought that your life is going to improve, that something great is going to happen, and just the opposite actually did happen. And of course, like in fishing, to the fish, that bait looks good and they have no idea there's a hook there. No idea. And for the fool has no idea there's a hook there. It's just the thing to do. It's the thing to do. And yep, but there's a hook, and now you're out of the water, and now you're on land, and you're heading to the kitchen. All right? That's what's happening. And there is no going back. There's no going back. But now we have these words from wisdom. And these are words of absolute certainty. Because I have called, and you disdained, or you refused. I have stretched out my hand, and no one regarded. Because you disdained all my counsel, and would have none of my rebuke. I also will laugh at your calamity. I will mock when your terror comes. It is the I told you so. I told you it was going to happen. It's as predictable as anything else. I told you that was going to happen. How many times does this have to be done through the history of humanity to where you learn? Now, once again, there are easy ways to learn. We can learn by being told. We can learn by seeing the examples of others. Or we can learn the hard way. Well, wisdom is trying to show you the easy way, the painless way. This is going to keep you out of those traps. This is going to keep you out of that. But you go into it, there's going to be calamity. And wisdom will mock you. Wisdom will laugh at all that. I told you that was going to happen. And here we are. Here we are. You wouldn't listen to me in the least. And it is very much like an adult telling a small child what they need to know, and the small child doesn't believe it. And then they find out. And the parent says, or the adult says, well, I told you that was going to happen. That always happens. And you wouldn't listen to what I had to say. You wouldn't listen to me. I told you not to touch it. Now you've been burned. I told you not to go there. Now this has happened to you. And so here is this mocking that comes from wisdom. Verse 27, when your terror comes like a storm and your destruction comes like a whirlwind, when distress and anguish come upon you, here is this point in time, and this is where it gets scary. Here is this point in time when things are, you've just gone from bad to worse, and then it is actually a word, you can look it up, worser. Okay, that just seems like I shouldn't say that, but it is in fact a word. All right, things have gone from just bad to going steadily downhill. All right, here is terror, here's destruction, here's distress and anguish. All this has come upon you. And here is verse 28. And here wisdom hides in silence. Because I was out there every day telling you. Then they will call on me, but I will not answer. They will seek me diligently, but they will not find me. The time is up. All right, the time of my patience with you is gone. The time of me telling you, listen and turn, it's gone. It's gone. And at what point does that happen? Well, I don't know. That's also a scary thing. At what point does that happen? So obviously for someone like the prodigal son, it hadn't happened at that point. He came to his senses. That's all that had to happen. He came to his senses. He's not being the fool anymore. He's not being the rebellious one anymore. He returns back home because he knows that's where everything was right and good. He knew it. So it wasn't too late at that point. At what point is it too late? And I can look at the lives of someone like a Jeroboam or an Ahab and see where, or even Israel as a nation, or Judah as a nation, or Jerusalem as a city, of where God is continuing to send prophets to tell them to turn. All right, here is wisdom. This is what you need to be doing. Do it. Here is your next, here's your opportunity is still here. It's still here. The door is still open, but there comes a point when that door is closed. And that's a scary point. That's a scary point of where suddenly you want that wisdom and you want to know, and it's not going to be there for you. Now, wisdom is not something that you can just take when it's convenient and set aside when it's inconvenient. All right, you take it, you keep it, it will improve your situation, wherever that happens to be. It'll improve your life. You take that wisdom, you grow, and you will grow in that wisdom. But if there's a point when you can say, okay, I'm setting it aside, I'm going to be foolish for a little while, I'll pick it up in a minute, it doesn't work like that. It does not work like that. That would have been a handy thing for someone like Judas to have done, of where he is a thief and he is using the ministry of Christ to steal from. That's low, by the way. That's low. And somehow think, okay, I'm going to straighten my ways tomorrow. I'm going to straighten my ways soon, just not yet. Now, how many men have thought they could do it and they couldn't? Because you've made a home for Satan, you've made a home for sin, and it doesn't just go away that easily. Of where somehow you've got it in your plans of where, yeah, I'm going to continue in this evil path until I get to this point, then I'm out. All right, what's the likelihood of that? I don't know. Because there's been a lot of people, they didn't get out. They didn't get out. They just continued on, or their life was just called short. Or they didn't get out. And so here is laughing at the calamity, laughing at the result that wisdom said this is what's going to happen. Now, verse 29, because they hated knowledge and did not choose the fear of the Lord, they would have none of my counsel. Now notice, they did not choose the fear of the Lord. Well, we already saw in this, verse 7, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. You've got to have that to begin with. That is why, and it is true, you take God out of people's lives, they're not going to be godly. They're not going to be good. You took the fear of God away from them, that they think that they're a purposeless accident among everything else that has no purpose. All right, how is it that you think they're going to be right? It's like it was a writer. He was English. He lived in the 1800s. This would have been after Darwin and the popularity of his book. All right, that you have The Origin of Species. That he writes concerning that of the Christian gentleman now just becomes a gentleman. He's an atheist now. The Christian gentleman now becomes a gentleman. And he said, it doesn't work. He saw it pretty quick. He said those that were raised in it with the morality, even denominationals, all right, if you have a little truth, you've got something valuable. You've got some truth anyway. A little truth is better than no truth. So if you grew up with moral thought, now you may keep some of that moral thought and things may be, there's a level you just don't want to go beneath that level. You just don't want to do it. You can't stomach it. But the next generation will. Next generation that grew up without God, not in their minds, they'll be the bottom is going to be much further down if there is one. And the conclusion he came is that you can't be just a gentleman and an atheist. You can't. There has to be the fear of God. And the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. And here you hated knowledge. You didn't choose the fear of the Lord. Therefore, this is what you get. Verse 30, they would have none of my counsel and despised my every rebuke. Therefore they shall eat the fruit of their own way and be filled to the full with their own fancies. For the turning away of the simple will slay them, and the complacency of fools will destroy them. And here's the other side of it. But whoever listens to me will dwell safely and will be secure without fear of evil. All right, here's this security of life. Now, before anyone jumps to some crazy conclusion, fear no evil, that means if I do the will of wisdom, that no evil will befall me whatsoever. It's not saying that at all. All right, in the context of the Bible, we can see where the Son of God suffered evil against Him repeatedly before we even get to the cross. Evil is that they were plotting His death. They were trying to destroy Him however they were. Of course, there was evil going against Him. But this is where someone can live secure and be able to make the right decisions when the time comes, of where you have the smaller things and successfully doing the smaller things, and you can build up to the monumental things. The things where, yeah, this is going to affect the rest of your life. You better choose correctly. You better choose it, because it will affect you every day for the rest of your life on this earth. And maybe into eternity. I don't know. Maybe there. But here, listen to me, and there is a secure life that is promised. But notice, you have, they're going to eat the fruit of their own way. They're going to be filled with it. Filled with it. And it's going to be bitter. It's going to be nauseating. There may be for a point where it seems good, but it's not for long. And then you realize, they would realize, whoever's caught in it will realize, this is not what I had hoped. This is not what I was after. I didn't sign up for this. Well, get yourself out of it. All right, get yourself out while you can. All right, turning away slays you. Complacency destroys you. Get out. And this goes right back to verse 22. How long, you simple ones, will you love simplicity? For scorners delight in their scorning, and fools hate knowledge. Whoever listens to me, now verse 33, whoever listens to me will dwell safely and be secure without fear. Now, we come back to, we close that little section in this discourse, and we come back to Solomon addressing his son. My son, if you receive my words and treasure up my commandments with you, making your ear attentive to wisdom, inclining your heart to understanding. Yes, if you call out for insight and raise your voice for understanding, if you seek her like silver and search for her for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. Now, here he's following the same sort of pattern that he does in chapter 1, beginning in verse 8, my son, hear the instruction of your father, and do not forsake the law of your mother, for they will be a graceful ornament on your head and chains about your neck. Okay? Now, it's this same kind of pattern. He's starting it, doing repeat, starting it back. But it's reiteration. It's not monotony. It's reiteration, trying to shore up what has already been established, what already he has said. And you, wisdom calls, you call back. All right, not when you're in distress, because that may be too late. Maybe you don't get to that point, but you call back. Yes, if you call out for insight, you're calling back. Wisdom's calling you, you call back. Yes, I want what you have to give me. And there's abundance, because God stores wisdom for us. He stores it for us. And it's ready for us. Yes, if you call out for insight, if you raise your voice for understanding, if you seek her like silver and search for her like hidden treasure, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth comes knowledge and understanding. So, this goes directly to the source. While we were personifying wisdom, all right, where does wisdom come from? It comes from God. All right, and he's saying it directly now. The Lord gives wisdom. All right, before we go and go too far and say, give wisdom some sort of actual being, wisdom is from God. All right, wisdom is while being personified, is not a person. Wisdom is from God, to be used or to be ignored. All right, but it's God. If it's going to be given, it's given by God. That's how it's done. And you're not going to really get this level of wisdom, this level of it, without Him. You can get a little bit. You can know right from wrong, and choose right for the most part. You can get those things, but there is something at a greater level that is promised in this, and it's promised from the very beginning of the book, that a wise man can obtain greater things. A wise man can hear and increase learning. All right, you'll never get to the limits of this. The Lord gives wisdom from His mouth. Lord gives wisdom. From His mouth comes knowledge and understanding. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He has plenty of it. You're not going to deplete that. You're not going to come to the end and say, well, He has no more for me at all. All right? And there is no getting any of this wisdom without the fear of the Lord. There is none. All right, starting verse 7 again. He stores up sound wisdom for the upright. He is a shield to those who walk in integrity, guarding the paths of justice and watching over the way of the saints. Here's what wisdom does. This is what wisdom does. It guards, it watches. Then you will understand. This goes back to chapter 1, verse 3. Then you will understand righteousness, justice, and equity, every good path. Now, in chapter 1, verse 3, it talked about giving this, as a matter of fact, to receive instruction and wisdom, justice, judgment, and equity. Those are huge subjects. And you cannot truly understand and know those subjects like you should without the fear of the Lord. You cannot. You can't. Justice, judgment, and equity requires the fear of the Lord. It's not done from someone who's ungodly. It's not. It's not done from someone who just claims themselves to be enlightened. Professing to be wise, they became fools. If you were to listen to them, they're wise. In reality, they're fools. Okay, so here we have this promise to understand righteousness, judgment, equity, every good path. For wisdom will come into your heart, and knowledge will be pleasant to your soul. Discretion will watch over you. Understanding will guard you, delivering you from something really bad. Okay? Now there's the smaller things. And as we said, you succeed over the smaller things, you can make it to the bigger stuff. The bigger stuff. And the things that require more understanding and require more discretion. And things that seem, yes, this looks good. This looks promising. This looks like the path I want to take, but it's one that takes you to destruction. It's not the way of righteousness at all. So we see where going back up to verse 8, guarding, watching, okay, guarding the paths of justice, watching over the way of the saints. Now, verse 11, and we've got this pattern. Discretion is going to watch over you. Understanding is going to guard you. That's what's going to do it. You're going to have the understanding to know what's right, and truly what's wrong. You're going to know it. And you're going to have the light to be able to see what's coming up ahead. You'll have the light to see it, to where you can know pretty quick that you don't want to be involved in this at all. Now, just a quick illustration. When I was a teenager and in my early 20s, I spent an awful lot of time perhaps more than I should have, in caves. I enjoyed exploring caves. And there were a few that we knew that we could just, could stop. Nobody would stop you. You just get your equipment and you go into a cave. And as I never went by myself. Now that really would have been a foolish thing. I never went by myself. Not to say that what we did was necessarily wise, but I would go with a very good friend, or it may be two friends, and we would go in. And in going to a cave, there would be times when we would just rest, and we would sit on a rock and turn the lights off. All right, that's the only lights we had. It's not like today where you have a cell phone and you can, just by the glow of the cell phone, you can see things around you. That was the only light we had. Now, could we have made our way out without those lights? Not without getting seriously hurt, even knowing how we got in. Not without great difficulty. It depends on where we happen to have been, all right? Because there were places where we would relax there's no way you're making it out without a light. There is no way. You cannot see the floor ahead of you. You cannot see the walls. You can't see the ceiling. You can't see anything. What lies ahead? All you have is darkness. That's it. And in Mammoth Cave, there's more than one dead body in Mammoth Cave. Okay. There's a skeleton, and it was deep in there. He was an explorer from the 19th century. All right. And that's where he died. All right. There's another one not near as deep into the cave. It's still, he couldn't get out. Something happened to their lights on both of them. Something happened where they could not find their way out, and that was that. All right, that was the end. You either die of thirst or die of hunger, one or the other. And with wisdom gets you through the traps of this life. Gets you through those traps to where you can see, all right, I can see the example of an uncle who drinks and the problems it brings. And no, I don't want to do that. All right. But what if Proverbs, what if I don't have such an uncle? What if I don't have an example like that? Proverbs can also show me that you don't want to do that. You don't want to get trapped in that. You don't want that trap. I could see the examples of someone in my life that has committed adultery and the poison that it brought into their life, extraordinary poison, and I can learn from that. But also, Proverbs shows me that's what's going to happen. That's what's going to happen. And so with examples and with Proverbs telling me that, showing me the assurance, this is what's going to happen when you fall for these traps. This is what's going to happen when you just are going to toy around with this. You can know you don't want anything to do with it. It will destroy you. It will destroy you. There will be no playing around with fire and not getting burned. And it may be being burned terribly. Like with a Judas. It may be burned terribly. Okay, so we will continue on next week. With this, and actually in our next section is this next pitfall that's being brought up, and it's similar to the first enticement. It's similar. That first enticement was that it was evil men, join us, we're going to commit crimes together. All right, in this next one, it's a little bit different. From looking at the description of these men, it's not, it could be murder and theft, but it appears like it's much more than that. It makes that first group seem like they may be a little less wicked than this next group. And one can fall into a trap with any of them. So I want to thank everybody being with us, and hopefully next week we can continue. Thank you.